Welcome to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Nina Adio, a social media marketing expert specializing in the wedding industry. Each week, we'll explore the strategies, stories, and insider tips that help wedding professionals thrive. You'll hear solo episodes filled with actual advice for social media and inspiring conversations with esteemed wedding industry guests. Thank you for tuning in and letting this podcast be a part of your day. Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. It is a busy and exciting week here as we are gearing up for the Inclusive Wedding Summit on January 22nd. And the perfect guest to get us ready is Deanna Evans, who is going to be talking to us about inclusivity in luxury events. So you can call Deanna Evans D. She is a top wedding planner in Ohio with over a decade of experience creating unforgettable wedding celebrations for D. Evans events. Her journey into the wedding industry, or as we like to call it, her origin story, began in corporate event planning for the beauty world, where she produced both intimate and large-scale hair and fashion shows. This early experience sparked her passion for blending current trends with timeless elegance, crafting weddings that are as stylish as they are meaningful. As you listen to this episode, you will learn how diversity and inclusion became a big part of Dee's business now through her own wedding planning journey, and it's really going to amaze you. It's an incredible story. But as the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for WIPA, the Wedding Industry Professional Association's Greater Cincinnati chapter, Deanna is a trailblazer, bringing her commitment to connection and inclusion to every event she plans. She's not just a master of logistics and details, she's your ally, dedicated to bringing your unique vision to life and standing by your side every step of the way. So we're going to be getting into Dee's story, a lot of Dee's expertise on incorporating inclusion and diversity to your business and specifically to your luxury event business. And she even has a special offer to work with her on an inclusion audit and things you can do to make your wedding business that's currently existing showcase more inclusivity and diversity. I had a really fun and nice time talking to her, and I can't wait for you guys to listen. So let's go. Hello, Dee. I am so excited to have you on the podcast.
Hi, Nina. I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk to you and your listeners.
And you right now, you're surrounded by how much snow? Where you're coming from?
We are in Ohio and we are sitting in about a foot of snow right now. So
Very
don't
nice.
envy me.
Yeah. So before we started, I did a bit of your intro, talking a bit about your origin story, as I like to call it, getting into the industry. But Dee, we really want to hear it from you. Can you share your journey into the wedding and event industry and what inspired you to focus on inclusivity in luxury events?
Yeah, of course. So I feel like I was sort of pushed into the wedding industry and into focusing on inclusivity because I wanted to solve a problem. So back in the the early 2000s, before the Marriage Equality Act was passed, LGBTQ couples had what we called a commitment ceremony. And my now wife and I had that commitment ceremony. And at the time, it was awesome. It was a great way to kind of have a wedding experience without the legal wedding. And we had all the bells and whistles of a wedding. We had a venue coordinator that really protected us. He made sure that we had the best vendors. We didn't have any problems. We didn't have any backlash. We didn't have any issues that would discourage our journey. I mean, we were living the dream. So that happened, and I loved it so much that that's what propelled me to get into the wedding industry. So fast forward to the passing of the Marriage Equality Act, and my wife and I wanting a legal wedding. That's where the challenges kind of started. Uh, since we had already had the big wedding experience, we just wanted it to be us, the minister, and a photographer. And the photographer was the hardest person to find. When I reached out to photographers, I was upfront with the fact that we were a same-sex couple, and I did that not necessarily to inform them, but it was because I was excited, and I thought everybody else would be excited too, and that was not the case. And so things started to get real, and that's when I started to feel the burn. We were ghosted, we were told no, and thank goodness that was the only vendor we needed because it was so hard to find. So after that, just a series of things started to happen. I had to find a photographer for another wedding, and the photographer mentioned to me that they didn't feel comfortable shooting a same-sex wedding because they didn't know how to pose a same-sex couple. And then I planned a two-groom wedding, and the band leader kept referring to the couple as bride and groom over and over and over. And so this all kind of became a trend, and these pain points stayed with me. And I just made a commitment that I would no longer work with vendors who don't respect diverse couples or diverse lifestyles. And now that's carried over into all of my weddings. And now that I'm in the luxury sector, it's more of an act of professionalism. So I understand that today's luxury couple is from a very, very, very diverse world. They're well traveled, they're socially connected, they're surrounded by what I refer to as a dynamic network of friends and family, all with unique life experiences, unique stories. And so by being pushed into this area that I'm in now, I'm forced to use the same inclusive language that I would use for everybody, the same practices with all of my couples. And by doing that, I'm honoring not just my couples, but their families, because now their experience is hyper personalized.
What a great story, and I really thank you for sharing it with us. That was really incredible to hear because I think we take for granted where we are now that these discriminations still exist and that they did in a time where we didn't think they did, where people would turn down weddings. You don't realize that happens, but it is a very real thing. And I thank you for sharing your experience. I imagine as your role now, you're part of WIPA, the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Greater Cincinnati chapter. How does your role influence the work you're doing? And how does the work you're doing influence your role with WIPA?
Yeah, of course. So let's just say it keeps me honest. My role with WIPA is centered around creating the systems and strategies and even the conversations that are going to grow our industry to be more equitable and inclusive. And so that's going to help everybody be that much more professional. So I get to learn from so many fellow wedding pros in this position from other chapters and other cities. So I can use that information to help my business and to help other businesses understand how important inclusivity is, and really continue to refine what it means to be inclusive. Now that I'm infused in this position, I see inclusivity in more ways than meets the eye. We're used to seeing elements of inclusivity pointing to race, gender, culture, even mobility. I see inclusivity in the luxury sector is actually being a personalized, even over personalized experience for couples. So we're talking about representation, that's not only cultural representation, but let's think about body types. Not only tailored experiences, but ultra tailored experiences that honor that couple's family makeup, gender neutral language, respecting pronouns, and just kind of honoring the couple's own personal identity. So if we look at a checklist, for instance, and this is one thing that I've kind of dived into after, talking to so many other WIPA members, on a checklist, each couple can really have a completely different checklist because their experience in planning is going to be different than the next. And if I'm being inclusive and telling their story, their experience is going to be different, so their checklist is going to be different. And I'm not going to hand over a bride and groom checklist to a two groom couple. I'm going to take the time to personalize it. And I'm not going to hand over a traditional Christian checklist over to a Jewish couple. So, it all has to be very hyper personalized to be inclusive.
I really like that approach of the personalization because I'm still thinking about the example you gave at the top about the same sex couple being referred to at their own wedding as bride and groom. But let's even take it a step further. It's like by that point, I hope to be, that the couple would be Matt and Anthony, Nina and Tommy, like that we would be us rather than just bride and groom. So the fact that one, they were using the improper terms, and two, they didn't know the names. It's like,
Exactly. You're exactly right. And I mean, that's the first rule of how to win friends and influence people is to learn and use names. So that's our easiest,
yeah, yeah.
easiest system. Yeah.
How would you define inclusivity in the context of luxury events and why it's important?
Mhm. So the way that I would define inclusivity in the context of luxury events would be, mm, similarly the way that the definition reads, which inclusivity is the act of ensuring that everyone, no matter what their gender, race, sexuality, or background um, is that they're seen, heard, and valued. When it comes to luxury events with all the glitz and glam that's expected, we can easily forget to include those aspects because we're so worried about keeping that glitz and that glam. But we should still kind of work to convey the identity of the couple, their traditions, their values, their family makeup, their personal styles. And really, you don't really have to let go of the glitz and glam to be able to do that. Because you could be missing a huge emotional impact with inclusivity, if you don't honor their personal style. So the new luxury couple might have mixed gender wedding parties, divorced parents, remarried parents, same sex couples within the family, blended families, blended cultural traditions. So the modern luxury event isn't just about the opulence, it's about creating an experience where the couple and their guests and their family feel celebrated without giving up that elegant atmosphere that gives you the good photos for the gram.
It's all right, all about the glam, the
It's
gram.
all about the gram. It's
So,
all
relating to that, and all about the gram and the image and the photos, what misconceptions do you think people have about blending inclusivity with high-end events?
This might be controversial, but I think one of the misconceptions is that, even though many of the luxury couples have higher budgets, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to spend it on over the top details. I've seen it over and over and over. The new luxury couple that we thought of as big spenders are just spending their money differently. They're creating priorities, and these priorities go way beyond what we automatically think of as being inclusive. They want to feel good about where their money is spent. And so they want wedding vendors who align with their values. For one, so they want to, spend their money there. And um, it's not necessarily going to be the most sought after florist that they're going to try to book for their wedding. It may be the florist whose flowers are locally sourced, rather than, getting, all these flowers shipped in so that they can hang from the ceiling. That their priority might be to lean into their community and give back to their community.
Do you have any personal examples of that just within your own area that you've seen that's a little different of maybe the type of wedding or venue a couple is seeking after regarding that?
Yeah, the couple that really sealed the deal for me on this particular um misconception was a couple that I recently worked with in the early fall. And this particular couple could write a check for any florist they wanted, any amount, anything that they wanted at their wedding. And the wedding was in one of our brand new venues, and I was excited to be, one of the first to work in this venue. And the venue is huge and it has very, very high ceilings, so it needs to be filled. So I wanted to fill it with flowers. And I handed over the floral budget, and the couple handed it right back to me and said, no, that's not what we want to do. We want our flowers to come from our neighbor. And I thought, oh, well, great. Your neighbor must be a florist. This is awesome. No, their neighbor was not a florist. Their neighbor was a gardener. And she always, year after year, had these beautiful floral gardens in her yard. And I thought, you guys, you can't do this. You know how many flowers we're going to need to fill this space? And they said, I don't care. This is what we want to do. We want to work with her. She's done a beautiful job for her neighborhood. We want her to provide the flowers. So I talked to the neighbor and I gave her an amount of buds that we would need, and she got to work. And whatever amount she couldn't handle, she would start going to the other neighbors' yards and planting so that there would be, enough flowers for the day. And I can't tell you, at that wedding was stunning. And to see and feel and know, and the guests knew, to know that those florals came from that neighbor was such a special story and was such a special way to honor her and include her. It was just, it gives me chills right now. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it really expands your thought on what the wow factor is.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I'm sure if a florist did that, it still would have resulted in a wow factor. But then when you have this backstory
yeah.
of what went into it and the meaning of it, that's a whole new wow factor.
Exactly. And I think that's what couples want. Whenever you see these huge, beautiful weddings on Instagram, yes, they're beautiful. And yes, we all want to plan them. We want to photograph them. We want to be a vendor involved with them. But when you really get a couple who really wants to tell their story and lean into their community, it's a whole nother level. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it becomes a bit more of, I'm thinking the word legacy, like starting a legacy through that wedding.
Mhm.
Really beautiful. So I'm sure a lot of people are just getting inspired just hearing our conversation. So let's get into some action steps for professionals planning luxury events. What are the first steps they can take to make their practices more inclusive? Let's assume they've been listening to this and been having some some hard check moments where they're like, "Oh gosh, I
Yeah.
want to change. I see why this is important."
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the first steps are really what I would consider some of the easier steps. Because the luxury couple lives a very diverse life and lives in a diverse world, you could be talking to or planning for working with a cisgender couple, but they may have friends or relatives or parents that are in the LGBTQ community, for instance. So they not only want themselves to be respected, they want their family and guests to be respected too. So I would say start by updating your language. Um, Remove the words bride and groom from your vocabulary. Remove bridal party, bridal bouquet, groomsmen. Just remove it from your vocabulary and from your marketing because those are exclusionary words. And replace those words with couple and wedding. So I'm meeting with the couple. I'm not meeting with the bride and groom. I'm meeting with the couple. Um, let's talk about your wedding party instead of let's talk about your bridal party. And just bouquet. Don't, it doesn't have to be a bridal bouquet. It doesn't have to be a bridal suite. It's just a suite and a bouquet. Um, and also work to include images from all walks of life on your social media and your website. So people want to see themselves in your business. And they also want to see their community in your business. They want to see their world in your business. Um, and I wouldn't just do a photo shoot and end it, or do, a post on a cultural holiday and end it. Try to be consistent and make inclusivity just a natural part of your brand. Um, I would say also another key step will be to work with a diverse vendor team. So if you're a planner, collaborate with underrepresented or BIPOC businesses, Black-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses. Try to find them in every area from florists to photographers. And if you're in another area of the wedding industry, make it a goal to meet these other vendors, meet for coffee or network with them at the millions of networking events that we attend. And it's only going to expand your personal network and give you more resources for your couple.
So many great examples all right within there. I think what I really liked is what you were saying about being consistent with it and sticking with it. I think a big example is what people see during Pride Month, and a lot of these national brands will change their logo and for the month of June, and then the rest of the year nothing to
No.
nothing to they don't show it in their audience, in their commercial, in their content or anything. And people can see that. They can see if you're only doing it in June when and it becomes inauthentic. So
Yeah.
what advice do you have for people who want to make sure they are being authentic?
So I would say continue continue to educate yourself. Take advantage of education that's out there. Showing up at webinars like this is awesome because it says, or listening into this podcast, I should say, is key because it says that you want to learn. Um, Reading what's out there, join some groups that are DEI focused, and also maybe partner with DEI experts who specialize in the area. I offer sessions for businesses who are interested in diversity and inclusion audits. And so I can help companies produce photo shoots, curate their social media, um, review their website, and look for holes or opportunities that can open you up to a more diverse market. And honestly, there's so much out here that it might be hard to decipher the truth and what is actually something that you need and what's authentic to you and your market. So having an expert by your side is key.
Where can people reach out to you to book that? Because I'll make sure I put it in the show notes because that's a really great opportunity to work with you on that.
Yeah, so they can email me at Deanna@deevansevents.com or DM me on Instagram. Honestly, so many businesses have just, looked me up and emailed me, and that's how the ball gets rolling.
Fantastic. Do you see, I mean, you must, how do you see the landscape of luxury events evolving in terms of diversity and inclusivity over the next few years?
I feel like the landscape is going to evolve to diversity and inclusion being just a natural and even expected part of everything we do. Um, Planners are going to be expected to design specific experiences that are unique to the couple that they're working with. Like I said earlier, their values, their blended families, their unique heritage, even their personal style. Photographers are going to be expected to use what we call now as, kind of a fluff word, visual storytelling, but that's going to become real, because couples are going to want to see that visual storytelling as a way to represent their authenticity so that when they look back and see their photos, they actually see their life, right? Um, Officiants are going to be expected to create ceremonies that are not these cookie cutter ceremonies, but something super intentional and very unique to the couple. And also, if you're a professional in the corporate event sector, I believe there might even be some surprising evolutions there too. Larger companies are going to want to know how you will honor their diverse teams at their event. And so you're going to have to be ready to speak to that.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, your role with WIPA, how do you see WIPA shaping a more inclusive industry, particularly at the luxury level?
A very, very high percentage of WIPA members are in the luxury sector. Um, and as a director, I get to see firsthand how we respond to growing needs in the DEI area and how we create system to support the how we create the systems that are going to support those needs. We're expected to educate our industry and keep the landscape of DEI at top of mind. And I really applaud WIPA for standing up for DEI and continuing to really expect that the members are not only educated, but actually use the system in their own businesses. So I would say look out for WIPA to be one of the top wedding organizations that is really going to have a truly welcoming service model.
And you've been, aside from WIPA, I know you've traveled at some other great wedding industry events. Do you have a lot on your radar for 2025?
Oh, fingers crossed I can get on a plane and fly somewhere far, far away and plan a wedding.
Yeah, what last year I think you were in Italy, right?
Yeah, I went
Yeah.
to Italy twice.
Oh,
And yeah, Italy is a place that is they're progressive, but they're still learning about DEI, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ community. And, also personalization, because, in Italy, and that, and rightfully so, they feel that their way is the Italian way, and this is beautiful, and this is everyone should have the very same thing. Well, we might have to shake it up a little bit. So they're very, very open to it. But yeah, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, I mean, um, gender and masculine and feminine has worked even into their language. So I imagine that's got to bring a lot of kind of new territory and things to really think about, you
That
know.
is absolutely true, yes. But it's beautiful, it's stunning, and like I said, they're progressive and they're open to it, so it's definitely a wonderful place for a destination wedding.
Yeah. And you're the one to plan it if
Yes,
if anyone's listening's thinking of it.
that's right.
If you could leave listeners with one key takeaway about the importance of inclusivity in luxury events, what would it be?
I would say one key takeaway would be to think beyond what you see as the automatic definition of inclusivity. Um, think when it comes to luxury events, think of true luxury as being personalization. When you get into a luxury car, you can actually adjust the seats, the lumbar to your body, and create a setting. And every time you push the button, it goes back to your body. You can personalize your phone in so many ways. And companies do this so that everyone who experiences the product feels seen and feels valued. So when you're making every client feel seen and valued, that is the very definition of inclusivity. And inclusivity in luxury events isn't just going to be a trend, it's really going to be the baseline of exceptional service. So it's where every single detail from that checklist to the execution says, I respect you, I see your authenticity, and I want to help celebrate and honor your love story. So I would say, um, look at inclusivity as just being hyper personalized and um, an individual, unique experience.
I love that, and I love the example you gave with the car too. Because look, people will drop money on a car because it feels like them, and I'm saying that as somebody who bought a car because it was me, And if
Yes.
somebody moves my seat, I get very upset.
Yes, and when you sit down, you're probably like, "Oh, you get me." Well,
Mhm.
that's what couples want to say. "Oh, you get me."
Yeah, yeah, gee, I don't even drive anywhere. I don't even leave the house for work, and I got this car.
Yeah, that's what we do, though. Yeah, because when we do leave the house, we want a car
Yes,
that gets you.
yes, yes. Are they any specific tools or resources you recommend for businesses?
Yeah, definitely. Taking advantage of podcasts like this and webinars and conferences. If there's ever a breakout session at a bigger conference that talks about inclusivity or DEI, attend. Just go ahead and take advantage of it. And something that is more, local and easy to do is just to start building that strong, diverse partnerships with your vendors, and that just says that you're committed to inclusivity. And also take advantage of the diversity and inclusion audit that I offer. Um, I will be happy to extend a free consultation to the listeners and a special discount for joining in today. Like I said, you can email me with your interest, and I do have a promo code, I do 10, for 10% off your audit. And we can just make sure that you're as open as possible to a diverse market as you can be.
I appreciate that so much. So I'm going to put that in the show notes, everybody, for I do 10 for 10% off your audit. Now is the time to do it. It's the start of the year. Let's bring your business into 2025. And Dee and I met through the co-producer of the Inclusive Wedding Summit, Brian Lawrence, and I'm going to be speaking in that about AI. And so I'll tell you guys just one quick thing you can do on ChatGPT is you tell ChatGPT, do not use the term bride and groom and don't do it going forward. And then it will update the memory. And then
That's
every
amazing.
prompt I get going forward. So you could say, I don't use the term mother of the bride. I don't use father of the bride, father, whatever it is. You can groom ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI you're using to know that. So this way you don't fall into that habit. Look, because I know running your own business and your marketing, it can get busy and we want to use AI, but you want to use it the right way. So I just wanted to give that free tip while we were closing out. So Dee, in addition to your email and offer, which I'm going to have in the show notes, where else can everybody find you?
I am on Instagram at D Evans Events, and that is where most of my fun is. And of course, my website at devansevents.com.
Well, great. I can't wait for people to reach out to you about those audits and to follow you over on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh, good.